This video is only one part of an in-depth review, so check out the rest at thegoodride.com. Thanks for watching. This Superbueno ride right here is the Burton Cartographer. I'm James Beastie, and you know this is the Good Ride probably by now. This is the Burton Kendo that I rode it with. Over there is the Union Atlas, and I got this in some late spring conditions, but lucky for me, I got the same shape of the Cartographer in the Burton Superbueno, a custom release with Evo from last year, and I put a lot of time in that shape in a lot of different conditions. The main difference this year is the flex is softer, and it's got a much more all-mountain friendly, medium stiff kind of flex, where before it was more on the medium stiff to stiff side. And it's just one of those boards that just does really well doing a little bit of everything. It doesn't quite excel as a directional turner like the Skeleton Key or the Flight Attendant or the Hometown Hero, but it sits more on the all-mountain side of freeride, doesn't have a lot of taper, but it's still super fun to turn. It has good float and powder, not amazing, but definitely upper tier float, and just is a fun board to turn and play around with. And overall, I really like this softer flex better than the old Superbueno stiff flex. When it comes to sizing, this is pretty good for me at a 59. I would be curious about a 56 if they made it, or a 55. I think that would be a really good overall size for my feet, but my weight felt comfortable with this. When it comes to shape, this is tapered directional, but only barely tapered, 5 mil. Kind of closer to that all-mountain double-ender feel where the tip and tail are the same width, but definitely a directional shape that favors your good foot forward more than switch riding. But overall, I like the shape to this. And then you throw in the directional camber, basically camber from the tail to past the front insert with a little early rise in the nose. You're gonna get a board that is more friendly for advanced to expert riders. It's not super easy to skid a turn, so you kind of have to know what you're doing if you get off your game. Still easier than full-on camber, but not as easy as a lot of hybrid profiles out there. When it comes to the flex, you can see it's got a more mellow flex. It's got a lot of give in the nose, a little less give in the tail by a good bit, actually not a little less. It's definitely stiffer in the tail, and then the center is stiff, but it's not. Let me do it from this side, from the stiff tail. The center's stiff, but it's definitely softer than most tapered directional boards in Burton's line. What I found though is nose buttering's fine. Buttering off the tail took a bit of work, even with the softer flex. But I loved how this popped. I loved how this ollied. And Burton just has some magic with their flex technology. They just know how to make a board flex and pop the way you would want it to, and it's just got loads of pop. Hate that word, but it's the best way I can describe it. Looking at the camera under the pretty lights in front of you. So as far as speed goes, even though it's softer than the old Superbueno, it still has very competent mountain speed, and you can point it with this thing and it's going to do really well. Maybe not as good as the Superbueno, maybe not as good as the Deep Thinker, maybe not as good as the Flight Attendant, but it's still going to do a really good job. I thought the base glide was great. I've had some issues with base glide recently with Burton boards that I've owned, like the Family Tree Hometown Hero next to me, but once I just tweaked it a little bit, got a base grind, got a better wax. I was using like Burton All Temp, and it just didn't work as well. It felt a little chalky. After the base grind, it felt like a Burton base, which has really good glide. Now, when it comes to uneven terrain, this softer, a little bit softer flex really changed up the personality in uneven terrain, and I liked that a lot better. It just felt like it flexed a little better. All Burton boards do great in almost all conditions, maybe save the leaderboard and some of your other super stiff boards like the Deep Thinker. It can get a little cranky. This doesn't do that. This just felt like a great all-day ride, and it never passed up anything into my joints and made me feel uncomfortable like some boards can in certain conditions. Some conditions they can be amazing, and then you get them in kind of like the conditions I described, that micro bumpy, very stressful on the board's flex, and it just will pass up into you. This doesn't do that. Now when it comes to edge hold, the grip is good, but it just kind of starts letting go when the snow gets medium hard to hard. It lets go a little faster than a lot of other boards with similar side cuts. I'm not talking disrupted side cuts, because that's maybe something that you're not into if you're looking at Burton boards. You want kind of more of a traditional side cut that doesn't have that grab in soft snow sometimes. This will be great in soft snow, but as it gets hard to icy, it can let go a little easier. When it comes to turn initiation, it was pretty quick for the 59, even though it felt like it might be a size too big for me. But man, once you got it on edge and you engaged this side cut, it had a very fun turning experience. It wasn't the ultra magical turning experience like I get with some Burton boards, but it's definitely up there, and I could turn this all day and just have a great time. It was really fun with a wide variety of turning radiuses. So it could do the long drawn out S-turn pretty well. It was really good just kind of like widening it out, making across the groomer carves, and it did pretty well for its size, making circle carves too for me, and I really liked it. It wasn't quite there with the Burton Showstopper, but that's a completely different board and different style of ride. But I just loved how this board turns. It's super fun to carve as long as the conditions are good. When it comes to powder, this is not your super directional powder board. If you want kind of like a daily driver that does better in powder, you want the Flight Attendant or the Hometown Hero next to it. But this does really good for a board with 5mm taper, has decent setback on board, not amazing. The early rise in the nose and that bigger, wider nose than the tail does some work when there's powder and helps keep you afloat. Just not for the deepest of deep days. When it comes to switch riding and hitting the park, you can actually do that with this. It's really not a jibber or anything like that, but it's okay in the pipe, and I'm sure it would be good if you want to hit some big kickers. It's got a pretty good flex for that. In comparison to most park boards, it's going to be considerably stiffer. So you can go big on this, and you can get some big air if you want. Overall, I really liked this board. I didn't love it to the point where it's a favorite, but I could see this being a very recommendable board for somebody who kind of doesn't really want to go super tapered and directional, wants a board for a little bit of everything, doesn't see a lot of hard to icy snow, and wants a really fun, dynamic turning experience and loads of spring and energy when you ollie or go hit a kicker. All our reviews are a best effort, objective opinion from an average rider's perspective. There's no brand oversight, and we're free to say whatever we want. We send back everything unless it's a favorite, then we ask to keep those or straight up buy them. Now if you need advice, fill out the eHarmony profile in the Contact Us section of the site. It's the only way I can help you properly. If you want to support us, and if what we reviewed appeals to you, it helps if you buy through our links. So thanks for watching.